Hey everybody and welcome to another review for our Edge of the Earth player cards for Arkham Horror the card game. Today it is just Bryn and I. We're going to be talking about the Mystic class. We're going to talk about what we think of the cards, if we think the cards are good or bad, where they might fit, where we might be feeling a little bit wobbly on them, and all that. If you have any additional thoughts that you want to add about cards, of you think maybe that could sway our opinions, or etc., just your own personal thoughts, you can let us know down in the comments. If you're watching this, consider liking and subscribing to the channel if you're not already subscribed. We would love to have you. We release a new Arkham Horror video every day of the week. Whew. Every day of the week, we do. Let's dive in. Go to the first card, which is Astronomical. How do you pronounce
Astronomical.
What the frick happened with my brain there? I mean, we didn't record a 90-minute long Tommy Muldoon video, but let's... Astronomical Atlas. We got there. 3 cost, 3 experience, item tome asset that takes up a hand slot. Commits for a brain and 2 books. Is a lightning bolt. Exhaust it. Look at the top card of your deck. If it is not a weakness, attach it face down to Astronomical Atlas. Max 5 cards attached. As a lightning bolt, commit a card attached to Astronomical Atlas to an eligible skill test. If that test succeeds, add that card to your hand instead of discarding it. Limit once per test. So I think we can say right off the bat that this card is very good in Edge of the Earth Norman.
Yeah.
It cycles deductions. It cycles deductions, right? Like, it's kind of just gross in Norman.
How many times do you have to play deduction before it becomes good?
And, like, it's really just, if you play your deduction once, you're like, that's pretty exciting. And then as soon as you've played a single copy of your deduction more than once, your chances of winning are going up, like, major percentage points. So, outside of Norman, do you have any thoughts on this card?
Like, it's a cool card.
Mm-hmm.
Is it good? Like, I mean, I don't know where else I would ever want to play it, really.
Yeah.
Because purple doesn't really have incredible skills, for the most part. Although, you know, I suppose you get things like, whatever guy reading the book.
Enraptured.
Enraptured, yeah. I don't even know what they're called. So that tells you how much purple I actually play.
Yeah.
It's not that much.
I'm kind of really hoping that this card is a plant for the future. I want to see a really cool, because this is purple forward, right? Like, this is not a level 2 purple card. This is level 3 purple card, which means only Mystics can take this.
And Lola.
But
like, really don't. This cannot work in any way, shape, or form. You can only commit purple cards off of it because you have to be in the role.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's not good.
But, like, I feel like this is a plant for a future archetype that we're going to see some more relevant skills coming out of the Mystics, which I think would be cool. Because, like, we already see some of the stuff that, like, is, like, prescient, right? Where you're kind of, like, predicting the future. I'd see stuff that's kind of like a reverse defiance, right? Where if you draw this token, a symbol token, you get a bonus, right? It'd be cool to see a bit more of the Mystic side. And I think at that point, this card will be more interesting. Because right now, I just see this card and I'm like, yeah, Norman busts it wide open.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as is right now, it depends entirely what your off color is.
Yeah. Yeah, because... I was going to say, like, even Diana doesn't want this because it's her hand slamming, which she wants to hold her Twilight Blade in one hand and a relevant weapon in the other. But, I mean, like, she could go, I don't know, because it was, like, Vicious Blows, right? Like, Vicious Blows would be another skill you want to play more than once.
Yes,
I mean, I suppose in Agnes, you could do Brute Force. No, then you're just still Brute Force. Yeah, actually, there's really, like, no home for this. It's crazy. So we're gonna mark this one with a watch for the future. Put this on our watch list and see if its stock goes up or down. Yeah. All right. Okay. Close the Circle. This is a 2-cost, 1 experience ritual synergy asset that takes up your spell slot. Commits for a fist and a foot. Uses 1 charge for each class among cards you control, including this one. As a lightning bolt, spend 1 charge and exhaust. Close the circle. Take a basic action for each skill test performed during that action. You may use your brain instead of the skill indicated for that action. I'm not too hot on this one, and I can't imagine you'd be either.
So, looking at the other synergies,
Yeah.
the ones that are good are the ones that work well if you have just 2.
Yes.
And I think if you have just 2, like, this card is passable.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, 2 money for an extra action is generally about the going rate. Like, 2 money in a card. And that's what this gives you. Sort of, except that the extra action you get to take is kind of bad.
Yeah, because it's basic, yeah.
Yeah, because it must be basic. So I think this one really wants to be getting 3. And if it's getting 3 or more, it's probably good.
Yeah. The Mystics probably have the easiest chance of getting 3 because they have the spell set, right?
Yeah, they do have access to a lot of cards that don't suck.
Yeah.
But also have, other colors on them.
Mm-hmm.
Not that the other classes don't, but Mystics need spells. Make brain do thing.
I mean, like, this card also obviously looks like it would be nice for Patrice, right?
Yeah, and Patrice, the card cost barely even comes into it.
Yeah.
Plus, you only have 1 good number anyway.
Yep, and it's the stat you want to use for this. Like, if this just is even like a bad impression of Eon chart in Patrice, right?
Yeah.
And like, if you can get 3, that is probably worth it, right? Like you said, it's probably passable in 2. It's passable. But like, if you can get 3, that's nice. Because, I mean, like, even if you just move, right? Like, this still is, like, if you get 3, it's still basically, like, 3 shortcuts, right? Which is that worth 2? Probably.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I see it. I'm actually I'm not as hot on it. Like, with the gang up, the whatever the yellow one's called and the green one, those ones I'm all like happy enough to play at 2. This one I think I would want to aim for this one for 3. I think I'm a little bit more hot on it than I was when I started reading.
I think you do have to be getting like 3-ish.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's just you could probably find a way to do something not entirely different or dissimilar to this.
Just better. Yeah, more efficient.
But, yeah.
Yeah. Sick. I'm curious to try it in Patrice. I think I'm going to bookmark that and try that in the future. That does sound fun. Because I'm just trying to think of what you pair her with. Give her an unscrupulous loan. Why the frick not? All right. Down the rabbit hole. So this is the permanent. Limit 1 per deck. It's a talent. Purchase a deck creation. After each scenario of a campaign, reduce the experience cost of the first 2 cards you upgrade before the next scenario by 1, and increase the experience cost for you to purchase new cards by 1.
This is what Arcane Research should have been.
Yeah. Because, like, if you're really just, like, if you're upgrading 2 cards and then adding 1 card, you're still getting out of this 1 XP positive, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I personally, like, hate these kinds of cards. Not because I think they're bad, but just because, like, you need to run them most of the time, right? Because Mystics are kind of built for this. One thing that this does do, this is really cool. It doesn't care about spells. So you can put this into like a rogue deck, right? And like if your plan is to upgrade a lot of things, or even like a guardian deck and you're upgrading all your weapons, it makes you get there quicker, which is better than arcane research, which is just, slap into your deck and just get things going. So like maybe in the long term, I'll be less upset about a card with this kind of design where it's like you need to factor it into your upgrades because the upgrades are warped around the card. But I think seeing it in off color out of Mystics, I think could be kind of fun. Probably awful in Survivor. I'm going to play Exile and then just ruin my day down the rabbit hole. Yeah. Not much more else to really say about this one. Dragon Pull. This is a 3-cost item, weapon, melee asset that commits for a fist. It takes up 2 hand slots. You have 1 additional arcane slot. Action, fight. You get +1 fist for this attack for each of your arcane slots that is filled. If at least 2 of your arcane slots are filled, this attack deals +1 damage. What do you think of Dragon Pull, Bryn?
So this is obviously just like here to facilitate Lily Chen, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Although I imagine there's some sort of weirdo like Dexter deck that you could play with this.
Yeah, he's
3
3
where you're filling one of your slots with haste.
Yep, okay, yeah.
And you're just beating guys to death with a Dragon Pull.
Yeah, like Donatello. That'd be sick. That seems kind of sick.
Yeah. They come up to you and they're like, your magic show sucks, and you're like,
just beating the guy with it.
Just going to town.
Like, obviously it requires a lot of work. You need 2 of your spell slots filled. But that's pretty easy to get with Talisman of Protection, right? Like,
yeah.
Because that's
and
fast.
Like, Dex has no problem getting a pile of stuff. Whether you're getting it by, playing cards that generate money or what have you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I have no idea if it probably wouldn't be any good, but you could also, if you're using this to fight guys, you can use the haste to take one of the activate actions on your spells too.
Oh yeah, you could. Yeah.
Right. So like maybe.
Like some sort of magic warrior. That's kind of fun.
Yeah, this one's one of them strange cards.
Yeah. Yeah, and like it's obviously there for Lily at level 0.
Yeah, level 0 Lily.
Yeah. But it's outside of that, like you kind of have to do a lot. Like say for example, of course, because I'm a masochist, I built a gym Dragon Pull deck for the Labyrinths of Lunacy epic multiplayer I did on the channel. And like when you get going, this weapon is very consistent, right? Like it's a +3, 2 damage near the end of it. So like when you go into a boss battle, it does pull its weight, right? Not to an extent that like for a level 0, you have to put a lot in to get a lot out. But because it's 2 hand slots and your game plan is doing these things, you can't really do much else unless you're like using your spells. So like it's not one of those things where like you can use this comfortably outside of Mystic. So like it lives entirely in the color, at least with what the card pool has right now, right? We need to start seeing more consistent low-level arcane slots in other colors for this to live outside of that space.
Sure.
I like this Dexter deck though. I think that's kind of cool. That you should definitely do that. If you ever stop playing Bob, as you said earlier.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure I ever will. The guy's sick.
All right. Foresight. This is a 0-cost, 1 experience Augury event. Commits for 2 books. Fast. Play when investigate your location would draw a card from their deck or from the encounter deck. Name a card. If the card drawn is the named card, that investigator may either choose one, cancel that card's effect and discard it, immediately play that card at -2 cost. So obviously this works well with Norman, and it works well with Gloria. Just baseline investigator abilities. Gloria, she kind of needs some help from it with either Alyssa Graham or Scrying. And you could argue that Scrying would work well with Foresight. But I think it's just like any mystic can run Scrying and Foresight. But I think even then it does not impress me that much.
You don't want to just like stare across the table at Travis during the Mythos play and be like ancient evils, and then have him be like, "That's not even in the deck," and you're like,
and you're like, oh no.
Put that back in my hand. I don't know what anything's called.
Yeah. I do think that if you can call this blind, you might be the coolest person in the whole world. Especially if you call Ancient Evils blind, right?
Yeah. It only needs to happen one time.
So maybe
they're not going to remember all the times you do it and screw up.
No, they're only going to remember
the time it happens.
Yeah. So like maybe this is worth running a one of until you do. Just in every deck that can run it until the end of time. It costs 0, so you can always play it.
Yeah, it does cost you 1 XP to put in your deck, but that's okay. There's prices to becoming a legend.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah, and if you just live with like a 1 XP handicap for the end until the ends of time until you do this, it's okay for how much of a legend you will become when you nail the Ancient Evils blind.
Yeah, that's what your Delve 2 Deeps are for, probably.
Yep. Oh Jesus! Just drop this. What's gonna happen is like I'm gonna say Ancient Evils for Travis. He's gonna draw like just some enemy, and then you're gonna draw the Ancient Evils. Then I'm like, fuck. Damn it. Yeah. Did this outside of these jokes? Do you think this card is worth it, or is it just kind of like with Scrying it becomes like fine enough? Do you think?
I mean, I'm not sure that it's worth the hoops, but if you want to be looking at the deck already,
it's probably a good upgrade. Yeah.
Yeah, you probably should be playing this.
Yeah, I think that's fair. If you're looking at like your own deck, or like this is also really good with the dumb scroll of secrets, right? Like I don't know what the purple one does on the top of my head, but it'd be good with the yellow one, right? So like even then, yeah. I think that's fair. If you're looking at either the encounter deck or your deck a bunch, this is probably worth the time.
I think so. Yeah.
Sick. Oh, Grounded. This is a 0 cost, 3 experience, talent, composure asset that soaks for 2 and 2. Commits for Wild. It's an unexpected courage. You get +1 skill value during skill tests on spell cards. Non-direct damage and a horror must be assigned to Grounded before it can be assigned to your other investigator cards. During a skill test on a spell card, spend 1 resource, you get +1 skill value for this test. Obviously, in purple, this is good.
Yeah, there's no part of this card that doesn't read good.
Yep. It's nice. I mean, like, it's effectively +2 to... It's like +1 to all of your stats, in a way. And then you get it and you resolve like a Spectral Razor or read the signs. And it effectively is +2, right?
No, it's not, because it's +1 skill value, so it just increases the number. Like, it's not +1 to all your skills, like the ritual candles are.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
I don't think. I think this just increases the value that you calculate at the end by 1.
Okay, yeah. No, that seems more correct.
But like 0 fast, soak 2 and 2.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
Say no more.
Like even realistically, if you don't want to, if you only use the +1 occasionally, like that's. But you're in purple. You're gonna be using spells. That's what you do, right?
Yeah, if you're not using spells and you're playing a purple deck, you're doing something strange.
Yeah, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about wrong. Different for sure.
Yeah, I guess yeah. And then also like the plus on this is really noticeable too. Just being able to spend 1 or 2 resources to get over certain bumps on a spell can be quite relevant at times. I like all the composures, and I think this one is really nice. Healing Words upgraded. This is a 2-cost, 3 experience spell asset that takes up the arcane slot. Commits for Brain. Uses 4 charges. Spend on charge, heal 2 damage from among investigators at your location. So we can directly kind of compare this one to the upgrade that First Aid had, in a way. This one doesn't heal from allies, but it does heal from damage from investigators at your location. 2 damage for 1 action. How do you think of that rate goes, Bryn? Do we like that rate?
I think it's not bad. Yeah, obviously healing is mostly just losing the game slower, but sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah. And
if you're playing beside Mark Harrigan, he's probably your new best friend.
Yeah, definitely.
Or you're his new best friend. Yeah, that way.
There's some sort of there's some mesh in there. Everything's going good.
Yeah, there's some definite sparks happening there.
Yeah. It's also really good. This is something that's healing has kind of gotten a little boost with the Edge of the Earth weaknesses, right? Like if you draw one of those, getting this can be a good step because you can get rid of it and then also heal one, right? Like it's not at a low rate. You could have 2 people discard theirs. Yep, exactly. Yeah. That would be especially if 2 people get one. This is like a really nice thing for that. Also, like this, you can refill charges, right? So this isn't something that I think like to me like healing spells I'm lower on. Especially like when you get to smaller player counts. But as soon as you get to 3 or 4 player counts, these things go up, right? Because you have the time to do this. You don't need to constantly moving the game forward. So I think it has a nice home there, and I can see it in like a support mystic, because who can run it? And Mark Harrigan's new best friend.
Yeah.
Meditative Trance. This is a 2-cost Inside Spirit event that commits for a brain and a book. For each of your arcane slots that is filled, either heal 1 damage or 1 horror. What do you think of our Meditative Trance?
Like if this card said "and"?
Yeah.
I still wouldn't want to play it.
Yeah.
Not really. It doesn't say "and". So to me, this one's binder fodder. Like.
Yeah.
Like there's one part of me, it's like the same part of me that gets excited when they're like, you can attach artifacts to Aragorn, he gets better for all the artifacts on him, and I'm like, it's not good though, but like I want to do it. And there's a part of me that's like, how many arcane slots could I get though? How many of them could I fill up with stuff?
Yeah, you have that dream, but I mean like even then like
good.
You like baseline, this is just 2 resources for like a heal, a damage, and a horror.
Yeah.
That sounds like a pretty low. That's
If in the next cycle they add more cards that care about how many arcane slots you have that are filled.
Yeah.
All right. Like this card as a payoff doesn't excite me. But
it needs more going
like if it's just part of my deck, like maybe. Mm-hmm. It's like a lot of damage and horror that I could potentially heal for 1 card. Just like I have to jump through a whole bunch of hoops, and there's got to be something else going on.
Yeah.
It can't just be this and the Dragon Pool.
Yeah, I mean, really, I do feel bad for people who get just the Edge of the Earth box and the core, and they're like, all right, I have... Ooh. Yeah. Because, like, even if we compare this to Talisman of Protection, right? Like, this goes so much to what we talk about, why healing is basically just losing slower. Because you're spending an action to heal. Talisman of Protection, it's fast, same cost. I believe they both cost 2. And you still just get to keep the game moving, right? Yeah. This one, it gets the stamp of binder fodder for me as well. I'm with you. Yeah. I would love to see things that pay off this archetype a bit more. I think that would be really cool, but just right now it doesn't exist.
Yeah, right now the payoffs aren't there, so doing the work to make that happen isn't really.
Yeah. Occult Theory. Well, Occult Theory is in your hand or commit to a skill test. It gains brain icons equal to your book and book icons equal to your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, these cards are just... I'm kind of just the same on all of them, really.
Yeah, they're not exactly exciting,
No.
um, but there are definitely some decks that really want them.
Yeah. The one thing that's nice about this one is that your brain is your offensive stat, right? In Mystic, it's your everything stat rather, right? So this basically, like, for most Mystics, is going to give you a good enough boost. In Gloria, this card is wild, right? In Norman, this card is kind of wild.
Yeah.
I think of, even though I'm not a fan of most of them, I think this would be the one that I would probably end up playing the most.
Yeah, I think this one is like, it's not like, bonkers or crazy or anything like that in the yellow investigators who can play it,
Yeah,
but like, you're never going to be frozen in fear again.
it's true. Yep.
They run that brain test up 5.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it can be committed to other people's things too, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
So if somebody else is struggling with a brain test, you can just be like, hey, check it out, my brain number is good and so is yours now.
Yeah, I mean, like, even just helping, like, your rogue. If you are a high book investigator, you could grab this, right? Even if you're an investigator who can, like even, like, Daisy to help a Schizo tool out, right? Like, this can go a long way. Yeah. This is a teamwork card. Help your friends out with your occult theory.
Yeah. It's like Guts, but with a billion more pips.
Yeah. Parallel Fates. This is 0 cost, 2 experience, Augury event. Commits for a brain and a wild. Look at the top 6 cards of an investigator's deck or the encounter deck. You may either return them in the top of that deck in any order or shuffle them into that deck. If you looked at an investigator's deck, that investigator may draw 1 card. I wish I knew off the top of my head what the original one did in comparison.
I think the original one has like a possible fail where you can shuffle the deck that you looked at.
Here, I wonder if I can look it up without destroying this slideshow. Let's see if we can do this. I believe. What are we looking? Parallel. All right. Yeah, look at the top 4 cards, so 4 compared to 6. Reveal a random token. If you reveal a symbol that's bad, you shuffle those cards to the counter deck. Otherwise, return them to the top of the deck in any order. You also can look at players' decks with this one, investigators' decks with the upgraded one. I think this goes without saying. Great in Gloria. Gloria needs the tools to get going, but I mean, I think her stat line is still so crazy. You can do things with the Foresight card that we just talked about earlier. I think if you want this effect, this is really good for the value you get out of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's also very strong if somebody's got one of the doomed campaign only weaknesses.
Yep.
Any one of those where you can just be like, going into the last 2. Oftentimes you're like, well, if I draw that another time, I probably die.
Yeah. And then they say, worry not, we're on a
And they can just be like, yeah, look at the top 6 cards, put it on top of your deck. Hey, draw a card. Fuck you.
Yeah.
I mean, like, but yeah, you can give them a window of safety that they shouldn't have.
Yes, yeah. And I think even in 2-player, like, if this is timed right, not around an agenda flip, which could shuffle the discard, this is even at a point where you can stack the deck to get the next 6 draws, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you can basically decide your next 3 Mythos phases, which I think is a quiet part of this card that can effectively be pretty strong.
Agreed.
Because, that's why we play First Watch, right? And this is kind of like that in a way.
This is why we play First Watch.
Yeah. Because, basically just every turn being like, you get the brain test, you get the foot test for the next 3 turns. I think once you get to 3-player, it's like 2 First Watches in a way. In 2-player, though, I think the value of 3 First Watches for 2 experience is a nice impact there. And that's without any other tricks, like any Gloria tricks, just the baseline card of itself. Cool. True Magic. It is a 4 cost, 5 experience item Relic Home that takes up a hand slot and the arcane slot. Commits for 2 brains, and a book, but you probably don't want to because you put 5 experience into this. Uses 1 charge. Replenish this charge at the start of each round. You may resolve abilities on spell assets in your hand by revealing them from your hand. Treat true magic as if it was the revealed asset to pay its cost. Spend the charges, perform its effect.
All right. The first thing I gotta say about this is that the Prophesy Profana costs the same and 1 less slot.
Yep.
How's that right?
How's that right? And like the Prophesy Profana also just does things on its own. It doesn't need additional cards to start doing things.
Yeah.
Wild. Yeah, you're right. Good point. Good point, Bryn.
That just something about that ain't right.
Yeah. They're both just magic books, right?
Yeah. I think this card is really cool, though.
Yeah. That's actually this is the one I've had the hardest time looking through these to kind of figure out what my initial thoughts on it were. Because I agree, I think this card's really cool, but like, is it good or is it just like cool and efficient?
I don't know.
Yeah, because like that's kind of like where I am, right? Like, I look at it, and I'm like, this sounds really cool, but then I'm like, but don't I just like want to play my spell? Like, doesn't that just seem kind of what I want to do? Someone in our Discord said that they used this with the multi-class bow, the magic bow. And I think that might be my favorite use for it because you're already exhausting that once a turn. But it allows you to have an extra hand slot open. But like, for every other spell, I just think, why don't I just play the spell? It costs me less in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is probably pretty good if you're playing some sort of, like, jack-of-all-trades purple deck.
Yep.
So you can run this and, like, it can be the Enchanted Bow, it can be a bigger fight spell if you've got one, it can be, you know, whichever variant on the Investigate Discover 3 that you choose to include in your deck.
Yep. And I mean, I suppose it also does get interesting when you have 2 of them in play, right?
You can only have one, it's unique.
It's unique. What's this? Yeah, this book is just this book is named True Magic. Man, you can only have 1 in play. Then what? Yeah. So then my question, because I agree, this is like what does sound cool about it, right? Being the jack of all trades, like effectively a toolbox deck.
Yeah, right. Like if the other thing you're doing is using it to cast a weird eyeball spell that discovers 3 and ends your turn if you draw the wrong token. Mm-hmm. Like, cool, you're only doing that once a turn anyway.
Yeah.
But also it provides flexibility to be other things too. Like, so maybe that's good. Who knows?
In this situation, like, because this theory crafting helps me try to like figure this out. Like, in this situation, what do you think you would use your other hand and spell slot for? Like, just the spells that you want, like the spells you want to do more than once a turn, right?
Yeah, I mean,
hear me out. A wither.
With her or without her.
You blast them with the book with a shriveling, and everyone's like, that's so impressive. What do you have next? And you're like, wither.
Why didn't you lead with that? Yeah.
I suppose this also could get kind of cool with the sign magic where you can like play other ones because you can go off of this, right?
Yeah.
And just be like spell slinging like crazy. Because then, like, you're not fixed to a certain spell. You can find the toolbox you need to get there. I think I'm kind of just existing in this state where the card is cool, but not necessarily, like... I think it's, like, a well-designed card, because it sits in that spot of cool, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking at you, Prophesy Profana.
Yeah. You get 1 finger wave, Prophesy Profana. All right. Last card here is Winds of Power. This is a 1-cost spirit event. Sorry, a 2-cost, 1 experience spirit event that can for 2 brain. Place 2 charges on an asset you control as a reaction. After you draw Winds of Power during your turn, you play it. So I think this card's pretty simple to kind of talk about. If you want charges, in addition to things like Twyla, or you don't want to play Twyla, and you're drawing a lot of cards, this thing goes up in value. I also personally feel I play 2 to avoid playing another Rite of Seeking from my hand for the time being.
Can you use this to put charges on the True Magic?
Yeah, you can.
Well, that's kind of cool.
I don't see why you can't.
Yeah, it doesn't have limit 1. Right?
Yeah, it's just 1 charge, replenish this, and it's place 2 charges on an asset you control. Yeah. I mean, you also don't exhaust.
That'd be kind of neat.
Yeah, you also don't exhaust True Magic. So,
Yeah.
like, I think with Twyla, that also gets a bit more exciting. Your toolbox can be more diverse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this card's just, like, good if you want it.
Yeah, it's also a Guts, so...
It's also a Guts, yeah. So
Yeah.
if you don't have the money. If you can draw this, though, during your turn, it shoots, like, it rockets up in value.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sick. Those are the Mystic spells. That's it for this review. We have Survivor and Neutral, which we're going to be coming up in the next 2 weeks. So that should be a good time. Let's see if we can bring up the Profana in those videos too. Maybe, probably not in Survivor. But we'll find a way. We'll find a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's Cards Wild. Huge thank you to all our patrons for supporting the channel. It means the world to us. If you want to support the channel, you can find it in the Patreon down below. Thank you so much for watching. If you miss Travis, put a little heart and say Travis in the comments because we miss him too. He'll be back though. It's just something happened. Life. Life's crazy. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. And as always, GG's.